Now, down to the south, we have Vili, who are known as very, very big traders of human captives, of slaves. And they move inland very far, and they take this with it, and it becomes a brotherhood. And if you want to be part of this trade network, which was essentially the only way to get by for 400 years in Central Africa, was to enter into this society. And what it served was to make links between different ethnic groups and cultures that normally would not need to make these links. And so what it was is you would enter it and you would have two little marks cut on your arm. And when you made a deal with another person, because this trade was the goods would come to the coast and you had to leave them with the trader, and then you had to trust that trader that you would come back with the goods. So there's a great deal of trust in what we call the relay trade, that the goods were brought in and were left somewhere until the captives were brought back. So to make a deal, you would say, I swear on the spirit of Bwiti, and you'd put your hand up here and do this twice. And we have ethnographic accounts of that because white men were joining this. Trader Horn is one of the most famous. They joined the society in order to gain access to those very secure trade networks that are making billions of dollars, maybe not billions, but great sources of wealth. The other thing is interesting is it becomes environmental again, in that in areas that have been overhunted because of the movement of people or overgathered, the Bwiti society, which is run by men, will put charms up, and if you see that charm, you do not hunt there, it's a form of conservation, where they're using their societal control to keep people out of areas that are going to run out of resources very quickly. We're beginning to see here the tragedies of the slave trade. People are moved vast distances by the raiding, by the warfare, and they have to relocate, and they have to reconfigure their religious thinking and their associations to explain and to cope with what's happening. So the last kind of layer here is the Fang, who are actually moving into this region to get access to the trade in the 18th and 19th century, and their word becomes Bieri, and they either borrowed it from some people who said it that way, which I've got evidence for, or maybe this is I'm disputing it with some linguists. They either created that word out of B plus Yiti, or they borrowed it. They're moving in, and they are very aggressive in their moving in. They're not very big slave traders, but they move into the Ogwe River and have to put themselves between people who've been living there for thousands of years and controlling it. So they get very schismed, and they become very focused on the lineage. Each little group could have only 2 or 3 families. And they borrow this society, just like any newcomer would have to do. You have to borrow the religious practices of the people that you're moving in on. They borrow it, but they really background the nature spirits, and they focus all the ritual around their own lineage ancestors. And this is because they are in extreme competition with other Fang and with their neighbors. And so this is an example of the way this institution has been molded and changed according to circumstance and historical contingency over time. Just for the last part here, and I'm not an expert on this. I'd love to write on this in the future. It's something really provocative. Of course, we do have experts from the 1930s, the 50s, who are the Fernandez anthropologists. And he did a great study of how this worked in the Fang when Christianity comes in, and the Bwiti spirit becomes associated with Jesus Christ himself and as a savior. And there's a lot of syncretism going on there that's really amazing to see. But in this period of colonialism, when white men have taken over your land, there's a lot of issues. One of them is a psychological balance. So the organization, the political religious organization of Bieri, was used to get people's brains balanced in this situation now where their lives, their time, their labor was completely controlled by outside forces. And also reconstructing a collective identity in this time of fragmentation with Europeans on your land. In the 1960s, Bwiti, again, it's always been there, but we see it really kind of take a new surge when Africans are getting independence and the politicians use it for political purposes, for intimidation, for legitimization, for a cult, and that still is pretty strong in Gabon too. And finally, Bwiti as a prosperity cult in the modern day age, where we've got oil wealth in the country of Gabon that's like something you've never seen, the richest folks you could possibly see on one end and the poorest on another. It's a condition of being associated with oil economies, which is part of why I study them now. But The other fascinating thing is there's many people from Europe, young youth who are trying to be like, remember the Americans who would go to the Southwest and take peyote for a fun experience? Well, Bwiti has become like that for many Europeans. So they'll go down and try and pay quite a bit of money to go and enter into the society, and that many Africans accept this, and it's a source of revenues in the modern day. So we see 6 different phases of this association, and what I'm trying to get at here with you, or try to show you, is the very great flexibility and change in this place in the world where people considered everyone to never change, that everything was primitive and everything stayed the same. So I've taken you through this very complex introduction, and it's not just the history of Bantu-speaking peoples in the rainforest, but also kind of tried to lay out to you some of the cosmological foundations and religious beliefs. We started very far back in time, and I tried to show you again how the Bantu have melded 3 foundational elements of their lives: the environment, their visions of it, their respect for it, who owns it; religious beliefs, meaning how they relate to the creator, their ancestors, their nature spirits of the land; and political systems. This cosmology ties all 3 of these together. And I hope, again, that this will help you appreciate not only the sculptures on view with a new light, but also have a greater appreciation and understanding for Central African societies and their history in general. Thank you.